G'day Bomber fans. So there were 35 players used in the 2024 AFL season for Essendon, which of course means there were a bunch that never got to play at the top level. I've already graded the AFL boys. You can check that video out if you want. Now it's time to review and grade the 8 unused players. So if you want to hear about the Luamon Luals or the Jayden Davey or Lewis Hayes of the team, here you go. So let's get into it. Alright, now when there are unused players on the list for a season, there are usually some injured blokes, and Jaiden Hunter is one of them. He didn't play a game. He did his ACL in the preseason before being delisted, so it is unfair to give him any grade. His body just wasn't able to hold up for us. He could have been a decent player. We saw signs last year with his 2 or 3 VFL games, but unfortunately those knees are made of glass and he is no longer with the club, so no grade for Hunter. Kaine Baldwin is another one who doesn't get a grade. He was also injured all year. He was looking great in the preseason, but he had bone stress in his foot, just a stress reaction on which I think developed into a fracture. It kept him out for the season when the initial prognosis was a post-bye return. It's an unfortunate season. He's also been delisted like Hunter, but it is reported that he will be training with us in the preseason as he aims to be added back onto the list as an SSP signing. I'm sure he'll be competing with some other players for that list spot though. Hopefully he shows up fit and raring to go and his body doesn't let him down again, but yeah, no grade for Baldwin as he didn't play. Alright, onto the guys that did play. Lewis Hayes played every game of the year. He was often our only AFL listed key defender back there, and when he wasn't, he was playing with Sam Wiedemann, which is not ideal. Look, there's a reason we gave him a 2-year deal, yet to play an AFL game, out of contract, but he earns a 2-year deal anyway, and it's because he's done nothing but show promise. This guy's oh my goodness. This guy's career trajectory is reminding me a lot of Jordan Ridley. He's a second round draftee, playing regular footy in the VFL, looking really good but flying under the radar a bit because he's yet to play an AFL game. I think he's going to be a good player. It's easy to say that about young kids just because there is that unknown to them, that AFL level unknown, but I see real potential here. I really like the fact that we have him on our list. Now, there were some unhappy that he didn't play in the AFL. I think those probably didn't see him go up against stronger bodies enough because he did get bullied once or twice by some strong men in the VFL, Billy Gowers type players. I think he would have been thrown in the deep end a bit. I like him more for the future than Wiedemann, but trust me, Wiedemann would have been a better player against the Swans than Hayes. Hayes is just not, he wasn't ready to play AFL footy. He needs another preseason, a few extra kegs of muscle, but this is what we expected. He's a skinny key position player. They take time, but Hayes is looking really promising for us. He was second in our best and fairest for the VFL. He showed off his ball reading ability, great interceptor. I've got to give him an A-. To me, he was our best AFL listed player in the VFL, maybe aside from Nick Bryan, but aside from him, all year, Hayes was super consistent. He had 1 or 2 down days here and there, but usually followed it up with a solid performance, which shows maturity. I can see this guy being in our back 6 next year, or the year after, potentially. I think he makes his debut next year if all goes according to plan. He's shown he has the footy smarts, the ball skills, he's pretty solid by foot, and just the general game and defensive awareness to play footy at the top level. All he needs to do now is add a tiny bit more muscle to that frame. He gets an A-, really good season for Hayes, super impressed with what he dished up. This is the highest grade of the video, so he is my favourite of all the gameless Bombers this year. Great work. Luamon Lual definitely had a developmental season. He's physically ready-made, but clearly looks to be lacking a bit in terms of finding his feet in the more professional pace of the game, I guess. He's talented but very raw, and that shows with some of those performances. I feel like sometimes he's just not involved, and when he is, it's fun to watch. He's fast, he takes the game on, defends well, but because he is an impact player who is at his best taking the game on and really injecting speed into it, when he's missing, it's a bit more noticeable. I reckon he had more bad games than good, which isn't a bad thing early into your career. Not everyone can be Archie Roberts and just show nothing but promise every game. Lual is definitely more of a project player, it seems, and luckily for him, being drafted in the national draft, he gets 2 years on his contract rather than 1, so it's not like Moncara where the club can say, nah, we don't see anything here, see you later. Lual has another year to prove himself. This year was really all about trial and error. He was tried in defence, looks good at times, moved to a wing, a bit less to like there, and then at the end of the year he was thrown up forward, which was a bit iffy. I think he's a natural defender, but at least we've seen him in a few different areas. He's getting experience around the ground, and that is good. Next year, though, he really needs to nail down one position, make it his own, and then try and get in that first team for a debut. He gets a C. First-year draftees don't really need to do too much to get a pass, to be honest, but next year I think he'll probably feel a bit of pressure as push comes to shove. I think if he's still lost in the system and struggling to find his feet, he probably loses his list spot. That is just the nature of the sport, but I back him in with another preseason to really make a mark in the reserves. I think he has AFL level attributes. He just needs a little bit more time than others to get there, so he gets a pass, but next year is crucial for his development. Jayden Davey, now he may well be delisted this year, and that is the harsh reality. He obviously came to the club with that knee injury. He didn't play or train last year. This year it recovered and he got on the park. He played out the year in the Rezzies. He had a few really eye-catching games. He was great against Williamstown. I remember that game well, and he kicked 3 against Casey, so he lit it up once or twice, but he had some passenger matches in there too. I feel like every VFL review video, I was saying that we needed to see more out of him, and we rarely did. He played 18 games, kicked 17 goals, exceeded 10 disposals just 6 times. His defensive pressure was really lacking too. It would be harsh, but I can see why the club would delist him if we do. I'm giving him a C- because this is his first real season playing at the level, but unfortunately for him, he's out of contract at the wrong time. This is an excellent draft. We need list spots. We have a plethora of small forwards, and he is at the bottom of the pile there. I feel like the narrative around the father-son is easy to romanticize. There's definitely more reason for us fans to fall in love with the story around the twins and the potential of them lining up for us together. So I can see why some would want him on the list, but I just don't know if he's going to be good enough. We're getting Kako in the draft, which will only make life harder for him. I don't think his year was a fail. It's really his first time playing footy in, 2 or 3 years? He's been off the park for a while, so for him to come out and play, have a few good games, he deserves credit for that. And maybe in another year where we have less depth in the forward half and more talent, he stays, but unfortunately I just think things need to change there, and he's at the bottom of the pile. C-, but I think he's probably delisted. Vigo Visentini. I talked about Luamon Lual being a project player before, but here is a real project player. This is a super raw ruckman, rookie drafted, so that is always a sign that it's going to take a while. I think we all expected a quiet year with a few handy games, and that is even more the case when you consider that he was pretty much always playing behind either Nick Bryan or Todd Goldstein, so he didn't really play number 1 ruck much at all, maybe 1 or 2 games, but he looked a lot better than I thought he would. I followed him pretty closely during the draft. I talked about him in a rookie draft video I did before we picked him up, so I knew of him and what to expect from him when he came to the club, but I really did not think he would hold up like he did in some of those games. He was genuinely a game changer once or twice. His stats aren't amazing, but he had an impact in quite a few games. Yes, he went missing in others, and that is more of what I expected from him at this level in his first year. I really thought he would be a lot more lost than he was, but we saw him really look at home in some games, which is just great. I think he is well ahead of where we thought he would be at this stage of his career. It's why we signed him up on that contract extension before the year ended. He deserved it. I just like the way he goes about it. He's hard at it. He makes you earn a mark if you take one in D50, and he likes to clunk himself. He can kick a goal. He showed he can ruck when he equaled Max Ramsden for hit-outs against Box Hill. That was on his own. I'm really excited to see what he does next year with Goldie, because it's such an important year for his development. I don't think he's going to play AFL footy next year, and if he does, it means we have some really bad injury problems. He is still so very raw, but I really like the way he looks early days, so he gets a B. I was pretty impressed with him. Tex Wanganeen, unfortunately, just left it too late this year. He was really poor early into the season. He was nowhere. He was returning from that foot injury, not having an impact up forward. He was then thrown into the defence more around the footy and looked a lot better, but the year as a whole probably has to be a fail for Wanganeen, considering it was his 3rd season in the AFL system, and he was, aside from Visentini, probably the furthest away from playing AFL footy of the fit players for our team, so he gets a D+. Unfortunately, he was just never really that good enough. I'm not trying to be rude. I wanted him to succeed, but unfortunately, he just wasn't at the level required. Maybe he persists now. He found a defensive role. He looked better down back. It was just a little too late, I reckon, so he gets a D+. And finally, our new recruit, Saad El-Hawli. Now, tough one to judge because he only played a few games for us, so it's not easy to really know what he was doing the whole year. When he wasn't playing for us, he was at the Northern Bullets. I didn't watch much of him there, but he was good enough to be named in the VFL Team of the Year. Only he and Nick Bryan were included in that team for the Bombers, so that's telling you something. That's also with that ankle injury that he suffered as well, so he was clearly a star this year in the Rezzies. I really like him. I'm keen to see more of him next year. I think he plays AFL at some stage. He gets a B+. We didn't see heaps of him at Essendon, but what we did see was great. He's a wingman or a rebounding halfback flanker. He is super energetic, really lively with and without the footy. He had some great games for us, kicked goals and revved up the crowd when he did. Really fun player to watch. He's going to quickly become a fan favourite, so he gets a B+. And that is that. VFL player or unused player review, whatever you want to call it. Cheers for watching. Cheers for the video ideas, guys. Comment down below what else you want to see. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.